Okay, Ron, I was just taking a picture of the studio because I'm dating someone and there's already trust issues, so I wanted to know where I am at all times. That usually means that a relationship is going to tank. If that's from the get-go, you're in big trouble. My guest is Ryan Bellerose. You know what, Ryan? I don't know what to call you, an Indigenous activist, an Aboriginal activist, or the I word,
Yeah, I'm okay with Indian, but apparently that gets people butthurt. So.
I don't know why people are not okay with Indian. To me, Indian sounds a lot cooler than Indigenous.
Yeah,
I would never buy an Indigenous motorcycle or an Aboriginal motorcycle.
Davidson Indigenous.
Yeah. When I hear Aboriginal, I go Australian.
Yeah, that's literally
the first thing I think of.
That's what my dad says too. We're not short and brown. So
you didn't mind being Indians until the East Indians arrived, which has proved to me that the Indigenous people have a deep-seated hatred of others.
Yeah, that's clearly it.
By the way, you look whiter than me.
Yeah, I'm pretty pale. My mom was Norwegian, so.
Your mom was Norwegian?
They're the whitest people in the world.
Yeah. Your mom was Norwegian and your dad was Métis and Indigenous.
Yeah. So
that's an unbelievable combination.
It's Northern Alberta in a nutshell, right?
Yeah. Bingo. Do you feel Norwegian at all?
We ate some really gross things when I was growing up. So, like lutefisk.
Yeah, it's not like the Swedish with the meatballs and the furniture.
Yeah, it's more like they call lutefisk. It's like eating snot.
I ordered a couch from IKEA once, and they sent me a cow and a tree. So I guess I was supposed to put the whole thing together myself. I never go near that place anymore, especially since I saw the movie Midsummer. Did you see that?
Yeah.
What the hell have the Swedish been up to that we had no idea was going on?
There's some creepy shit.
Yeah. Now, you and I were talking outside. We kind of had, I can't say identical. We had running water, and only 5 of us shared a bathroom, but you grew up with no running water.
Yeah.
And outdoor toilet.
Yeah, that was not fun, especially in the winter.
Yeah, but you were tough as nails.
Well,
as a result.
I thought my Indian name was going to be Go Get Water, but yeah.
Right, yeah, okay. Right. Mine was Go Get Cigarettes. That was my Indian name. Yeah, nice. We didn't even need a note. My father used to send us for cigarettes when we were 6 years old. Yeah. I can still say it to this day, 2 large Belvedere regular, please. And that was it. But we were talking outside about how, a hard-scrabbled childhood prepares you a lot better for what's going on now. The only way to survive now, and I truly believe this, is to have sex with a member of your own gender, wear pleather when you're riding your e-bike, manscape with a Gillette razor, and people you don't know and don't give a shit about will love you.
Yeah.
That's basically the credo for the world now, right?
Yeah, it's pretty messed up.
It's messed up, and I think it all started when some idiot went into a store 20 years ago and bought a knapsack and turned to the female cashier and said, "Thanks, dude." That's when everything went right down the toilet.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Some of this stuff's pretty disturbing for me, too. I mean, I grew up with a very traditional, we looked at sex as like a binary thing. And,
right.
There were probably homosexuals where I was from, but we always used to joke if there were, we didn't know, right?
Oh, I thought you people worshipped them.
No, see, that's the thing.
I watched A Man Called Horse, and the gay Indian was beloved by the rest of the tribe, like the court jester.
Well, you got to remember that some tribes, they had, we didn't call them two-spirits to begin with.
Right.
With the Cree, we called them Berdash.
Right.
And all that meant was that it was a man who lived as a woman.
Yeah. So sounds a lot like Jordash, by the way. Berdash,
yeah,
Jordash.
It's kind of, it's a little bit femmy.
Yeah.
But, so for us, for the Cree, there were 3 genders.
Right.
So, because there were 3 genders, it makes it a little bit different. Pull that up, that's better. So, but the problem is that everybody's like, oh my God, we're on Turtle Island. We didn't think that the land was like a turtle.
Right.
How the hell would we have thought that it was an island in the first place? We were from central Canada.
Yeah, so these are all tales that white people have foisted upon other white people.
Absolutely. And this whole, we all worshipped. It's like, natives were a lot like nations in Europe. Think of it that way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We had our own belief systems, our own languages.
Right.
And in some tribes, they actually killed gay people. In some tribes, they did actually worship them. In some tribes, they were just considered part of normal everyday life. Like
you killed people when you played lacrosse.
Yeah, that was fun.
You know what I mean? Somebody died in the tribe every day.
Yeah.
Didn't matter if it was polo, gay, or
yeah. Well, you got to remember lacrosse. Too, like, yeah, that's the other thing. I hear a lot. Indians killed other Indians all the time before white people showed up. It's like actually we had very ritualized versions of warfare. Yeah. So for us, counting coup, which was for me to run up to you with a stick, hit you with a stick and run away, that was considered to be more brave than me just killing your ass.
Right. So, it's like tag with a weapon.
Yeah, exactly.
So basically, that's what it was.
Yeah.
You didn't hit anybody too hard. You just took off.
Yeah, exactly. You hit him, and then you could show, look, I'm that brave.
The other argument I love is that it was never your land to begin with because you took it off other Indians.
Yeah,
I love it when they say that. You took it off other Indians. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No. So I guess it's not yours. I guess it belongs to the first tribe.
Yeah.
But the whole, like I said before at the top of the show, the whole Indigenous versus Aboriginal versus Indian, like I'd rather be called Cree than Aboriginal.
100%.
I'd rather be called Iroquois than anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To me, that's the coolest.
Exactly. We were like when you study history, you remember all the badass Indians, right? Like the ones that fought people and kicked their ass. Right. Those are the ones you wanted to be like.
The ones that fought and won.
Yeah. Exactly. So, but actually about the Indigenous thing, just so you know, some Native people get really upset if you say Aboriginal. Some people, depending on where you're at in Canada, get upset if you say Indigenous. The safest bet is to just ask, what nation are you from?
Right.
And most of the time we'll say like Cree, Blackfoot, whatever.
What about band? Band upsets them?
You can say band.
Okay, good.
But you know what? There's so many people that will manufacture outrage that sometimes I feel bad for white people because it doesn't matter what you say. Some people are going to be like, why did you say that? That offended me.
Yeah, I got news for you. That's not a...
it's not just
a nation, band, Aboriginal, Indigenous thing now. It's everywhere.
Yeah, unfortunately.
The BS that's going on now, you don't even know what to say to anybody. I went to a movie tonight before I came here, and I was standing behind a pre-op transgender and his lady friend. And, I believe in live and let live. I believe, whatever you want, fine by me. You can have all the rights in the world. Marriage, no problem. Every single thing. But don't expect me not to express a little bit of shock when you're standing there with red hair down to your ass. You're wearing a mini skirt and obviously a bra with, what do they call them before? Phonies? What did they call them before?
Falsies? I don't know.
I don't know. But then this deep baritone comes out of your mouth and I'm not supposed to at least express a little bit of shock. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I totally know. Look, that to me too, that's always been confusing to me. Especially the ones that are like, I'm a gender queer, trans woman, lesbian. It's like, so you're a straight dude with kinks. Like, that's what you just told me.
There's so many words now that I feel dyslexic. I can't keep up.
Yeah.
I just can't keep up with everything that's going on, and it's kind of driving me nuts. Yeah. And I'm trying. I really am. Yeah. But I don't know. It's just not. And all of it resonates with me, every bit of it.
Yeah.
But, I love you no matter what your sexual preference is. I love you if, you feel like you're the wrong person trapped in another body. I love you if you're a lesbian. I adore you if you're a lesbian.
Especially their movies.
I have no issues with any of you, and I think it's all great. But don't call me an asshole because I consider my dick a national treasure and I protect it like that. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
What am I apologizing for?
Well, that's the thing. You're apologizing for being, for lack of a better word, normal.
Well, I think you better use an accident of birth. I'm apologizing for being a heterosexual accident of birth.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
It's like with your people. My people came here in 1920 from Ireland. So guess what, Ryan Bellerose? I don't owe you an apology.
No.
For anything. Because my people have only been here for 99 years.
Yeah.
So as far as I'm concerned, my grandfather went right up north to build the Trans-Canada Highway and told me that they treated the Irish workers up there worse than they treated the horses. The horses got a tent every night with a heater. These guys were in a tarp with no heat and about 4 or 5 blankets. He said to me they treated the horses way better than they treated the guys building the highway.
Oh, yeah.
Which kind of made sense to me.
I'm not one of those people that thinks that we demand apologies and shit like that. I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's too bad though, because they're sure easy to get now.
Well, that's that's the whole thing. I mean, do I think that the average Canadian needs to acknowledge that some pretty horrific things were done in order to create Canada?
Look, we looked down our nose at America for I don't know how long.
Yeah.
Over slavery. And then And I when I was a kid going to school, I knew nothing about this residential school system. You should explain that to people, because it ended, what, in the 80s?
Yeah, well, the last functioning residential school was in Alberta in 1993. St. Mary's Salesian closed its doors.
But you weren't taking off your parents.
No, see, that's the difference. Is by that time, a lot of our parents would send us there, because you got to remember, it was so internalized that you just sent your kids away to go to school.
Now, were they looking at it as like, oh, this is a free private school education, this is going to be better for you? Is that how they thought of it when they sent you there?
Okay, I'm going to say something that's a little controversial.
Really?
Yeah.
You say something that's a lot controversial?
Yeah. With a lot of people, they really, like my dad included, you got to remember, my dad's a proud Métis person, and you won't find somebody more traditional.
And people should know that Métis is a mix of French and...
well, European
Indigenous.
In general. There's
European
French,
in general and Indigenous.
Yeah.
Louis Riel.
Yeah, and we're from a specific place. I'll get into that after if you like.
Okay.
But in regards to residential school, my dad wanted me to be able to fit in better.
Yeah.
Right. He wanted me to be able to speak English. He wanted me to be able to get a good job.
Right.
And unfortunately, for a lot of Native people, that does mean assimilate. And, like with the white paper, you and I had talked about that. Trudeau, basically, the Trudeau elder, made this paper with Chrétien, the crooked face guy, and they decided that they were going to assimilate Indians. And that was the whole white paper. And they were going to get rid of the Indian Act, get rid of all the protections in Canadian law for Native people.
And sell all the reservation land and supposedly set up a fund for the Indigenous people. Yeah.
Set this fund up and then literally teach us how to be white.
Right.
Now, part of the problem was that we'd already experienced residential schools.
Right.
And anybody who's Native, who has family that went through those places, knows there was never anything more abusive.
Right.
It's some of the stories are
it was physical abuse,
horrific.
Sexual abuse.
Yeah.
There was all kinds of stuff going on in those schools.
Yeah, like my dad would speak Cree, they would close a mousetrap on his tongue.
No kidding. No.
That's the kind of shit. Like my dad never told me that story. His sisters told me that story.
My mother used to tell us about how she wrote left-handed and they hit her with a ruler. Yeah. Your story tops the shit out of that. I might change it to they used a mousetrap on my mother to make her write right-handed.
Yeah,
that's pretty bad.
There's some pretty horrific shit. Like they would put dried beans and rice on the floor and make the kids kneel until their knees bled. Like there's some really horrific.
Well, that's
stories.
Called being Catholic.
Well, that was
that's what the Opus Dei guys do to their kids.
Yeah,
the Catholics do that. They kneel on gravel.
Yeah, it's pretty messed
which
up.
I don't really get. What's the point of that?
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like when I went back to observing traditional Cree spirituality, I was pretty glad to leave the Catholicism
some of that
behind.
Stuff, yeah, way behind. Yeah. But did you find your experience in those schools good?
Now, this is a tough one because on the one hand, St. Mary's did prepare me for life in general, right? Like very disciplined, very academic.
Yeah.
I got to play football and basketball, which served me in good stead for the rest of my life.
Right.
On the other hand, I know that there were kids that were abused, and I didn't know at the time because
they were being abused at that school as well.
Yeah, like when you're the difference is when you're 6'3" and 240 pounds at 12 years old.
Yeah. They
don't mess with you.
Right.
But some poor kid that's 5 foot nothing and weighs a buck 2 or whatever.
Well, that's who they're going after.
Yeah, that's who they're going after. And like I've talked to some of my peers that were in school with me, and they were like, "You never noticed because you were in your own world playing sports, and you were a giant, so nobody ever bothered you."
Well, why the hell would a kid notice anyway?
Well, exactly right. Like you don't hear it until later, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the priests were always rough, but like Father Carmen used to, if you were talking in study hall, he would throw his rack of keys at you.
Right. And was it Jesuit? Were they Jesuit?
They were Salesians. Okay. So St. Francis de Sales.
Yeah. So it was a lot of discipline, a lot of sports for you, and no sex.
Well, the funny thing is we used to have dances, and there was an all Catholic girls' school. Yeah. And they'd have dances, and the nuns would come over with their rulers
for the skirts.
No, and they'd put the ruler
between you, two of you.
Yeah. No, there was no sex. Thankfully.
All right. So you got out of there and pretty much unscathed.
Yeah. No, I got out of there and I moved in with my mom was a teacher. She was living in Southern Alberta at the time.
Right.
So when I finished at St. Mary's, I moved to St. Albert to live with my mom, and I was lucky because I played football in high school. Played basketball and pretty much, but in the summer I would go home and live on the res with my dad again.
Right. But did you get the full ride through university because of your Aboriginal blood?
No. See, that's another misnomer. Some Native bands will get their education paid for.
Right.
I had scholarships for football, leadership scholarships, academic scholarships, but
nothing to do with your bloodline.
Nothing.
So the Métis don't get anything?
Well, depends. Now, see, I'm from a settlement. Right. So people on
which is not a reservation. People should know that.
Yeah, it's different because we own the land under Métis title, so it's not considered federal land.
Right.
So the problem was, though, that some people from the settlement, if you have the right last name, you'll get your education partially funded. But if you have the wrong last name, you don't get anything.
Okay, but you went on a scholarship.
Yeah, I was lucky. I played football and I was decent at it. So
where'd you go?
University of Alberta.
Okay, U of A, yeah. Good university.
Yeah, it was a good school.
So what'd you take there?
Native Studies.
Come on.
I know it's...
What'd you do, stand there and look in a mirror for 4 years and get a diploma?
Oh, okay. So I will tell one really quick story because you are going to pee your pants.
All right.
So I took this...
I'm at that point now anyway, but go ahead.
As long as you're not wearing Depends, you're still good. So I go to class and I go to my course selection. And one of my buddies, he's a white kid. He's in his third year in Native Studies, and I was only taking Native Studies.
I like the way you say white kid with complete disdain. By the way,
yeah,
you know what? We can handle it. We're not like the rest of you.
Yeah,
we're not. We don't get all upset about it. You can call me Whitey all you want. Oh, you can call me Peckerwood.
No, I wouldn't do that. So, but he was a good kid, right? So he comes over and he's like, "Hey, Bellerose," he goes, "You got to take this class. It's the best class ever." And I was like, "What is it?" He's like, "Native art." And I was like, okay, like, what do I got to do in the native art class? He said, you only have to do one project all year. And I was like, sweet. So like, what did you do last year? And he's like, oh man, I made this mural and it took me like 45 minutes. And he's like, the rest of the year, I just stared at all the chicks. And I was like, all right. So.
And he got through.
Yeah. And he got through, he got the grade, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't, I'm not going to lie. I would go play basketball every day during that class because it was a useless class.
Right.
And the last day, my buddy Carwell comes over to me and he's like, Bellerose, you got to turn in your project today or you're going to fail. And I was like, oh shit. So I grabbed this stick. I'm not joking right now.
Yeah.
I picked up a stick off the ground.
Yeah.
I had a pen knife. So I peeled the stick and then I went to the student union building and bought a red marker and I colored the stick red. And I go in and I hand it in. And as I'm handing it in, the teacher says, oh, this is so deep. And I'm like, I was like, yeah. And she goes, is the stick like it's a symbol of your people and the red is the symbol of your blood. Yeah. And I was like, you totally get me.
Yeah. And you got to pass.
And I got to pass and I got the hell out of there.
And the teacher was white, of course.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. And caring.
Oh, very caring. Very
to the point of condescending.
Yeah, exactly.
So a white person was teaching Native Studies.
Oh, of course.
Okay. Okay, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it was good.
So yeah, when you graduated from U of A, you went off and started working with heavy equipment?
Well, actually before that, because I worked when I was a kid growing up. In the summertime, we would do like wildfire firefighting. So I got pretty good with the chainsaw, and I would do like slashing and stuff like that. And then in the winter, we'd build ice roads, like ice bridges.
Yeah.
And
you don't mind my asking, how'd they get you in the helicopter?
Okay, so that's the funny part. So I passed my Type 1 firefighting.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was only 265 pounds.
Right.
That's still too big for the helicopter.
It's too big for a helicopter, really?
You need to be 220 pounds with your chainsaw.
So when you get on an elevator, do people get off?
Sometimes. It's actually kind of funny. I mean, I don't think I'm huge, but I'm 6'4", and like
Listen, man, you're like a gentle giant. I'll tell you, you remind me the physical size. You're a nice guy and everything, but you look like Ed Kemper. You know who Ed Kemper was?
The serial killer. Awesome. Yeah. That makes me feel good. But yeah, I was a pretty decent sized kid back then. So they didn't put me in the helicopters. I was on the initial attack, the trucks.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And at some point, you decided to become an activist. Was that after football? Because you played semi-pro, right?
Yeah. So what happened was when I was in university.
I get to use a line from Longest Yard now.
Oh, nice.
All crew, Burt Reynolds.
That was a great movie.
Semi-pro's a joke.
Yeah, it is. To be honest, I played football because it was fun.
Okay.
Okay. And I got to hit people and not get in trouble.
Yeah, all right.
But yeah, so this is a terrible story, I guess. But so when I was in university, I got voluntold that I was going to be on the student government.
Right.
And I asked Coach Friesen, Jerry Friesen was the coach at the time. I said, Coach, why are you making me do this? Like, I'm new in the city. I don't know that many people. And he started laughing. And he's like, Bellerose, he's like, you're one of the smartest kids in this friggin' team. He's like, you're not going to fail because you have to go to one thing a week for for student government.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, I guess. So I go to the student government thing and I hated it. I sat there every day and like, this is boring shit. And then a bunch of Native kids come up to me and they were like, why aren't you on the student government? And I was like, what do you mean? Sorry. So then I said, well, what do you mean? And they were like, well, you're on the regular student government. Why aren't you on the Native student government? So I said to them, I was like, well, what do you guys do? They were like, well, we meet once a month and we talk about Native things.
Right.
And I was like, but what do you govern? Like, what do you actually, like, what do you impact?
The people in the room.
Yeah, because I had no idea there even was one, right?
Yeah.
So I went and sat in on one of their meetings and I realized something, like these kids would all just sit around and bitch about white people.
Right.
That was literally what they did. So I asked them.
And again, by the way, we're okay with that.
I mean, well,
just so you know, we got thick skins.
You have to nowadays.
Yeah.
But so I said to them, I said, look, like you guys are, you're hating on white people pretty good, but it seems to me like instead of hating on white people and pissing them off, wouldn't it be better to like maybe talk to them in a way that they would listen?
Right.
Because I told them, I said, I don't know about you, but when somebody comes up to me and says, you're an asshole, I don't listen to anything they say after that.
Yeah.
But if somebody comes up to me and says, hey, like I've got a beef, would you mind listening to me? Like, and I'll tell you why I'm upset. And then maybe we can come to some kind of accommodation.
I'll tell you, when you're born Aboriginal in this country, it can be two things. One can be a life of darkness, or the other one can be a lotto win.
Yeah.
If you've got the wherewithal to play your cards right and game the system, you're going to cruise.
Yeah.
Like a guy like you.
I'm
not saying you haven't worked hard.
Yeah.
You have. But you've been able to game the system.
Yeah, like there's, this is what I tell people.
You don't drink, do you?
No, not at all.
You don't do drugs?
No.
You ever tried it?
Yeah, I you know what? I almost drank myself to death a long time ago. But
like when you were a kid?
Yeah.
Okay, I got drunk when I was 18, never touched stuff again. And one thing I can identify with Indigenous people, when it comes to Indigenous people, one thing I can identify with is the fact that there's a long line of alcoholism in my family. There's a long, long line of alcoholism. So I got sick once, and then I decided, no, it's not for me. And obviously the same thing happened to you.
Yeah, well, I had somebody close to me was killed by a drunk driver.
Right,
so
okay.
So I turned into a moron for about a year and drank every night. And then my dad basically said, look, if you're going to kill yourself, eat a gun. It'll be faster.
Yeah. Your dad sounds wise and like someone who'd be arrested today.
Yeah, exactly. That's, yeah, exactly. Like, could you imagine telling a kid nowadays, go cut your own willow so I can spank you?
Yeah, I know. No. Why don't you eat a gun?
Yeah.
There's no chance. Yeah. There's no chance. So how long did you stick with the Native Council?
I didn't. So I basically told them, look, if you guys aren't interested in actually doing something to affect change, I don't want to be involved. And then I got involved in, it's going to sound kind of funny because I'm Native, but I got involved in pro-Israel advocacy because listen, you want to tackle problems, I get it, but it's great that you're doing stuff for your own people, but I think taking Israel on your back at the same time is quite frankly a bit much, right? It was looking back, but at the same time, like my voice in their struggle is amplified.
What fascinated you with Israel?
Well, it's funny. I looked at it in like the most simple, basic terms. Moral, ethical, and rational, right? So I look at it, and to me, they're an indigenous people, which are like natives, but they're Jews or indigenous to Israel.
Yeah.
Right? They
are a tribe.
Yeah, and they meet all the criteria. According to Jose Martinez Cobo, they meet every single criteria.
Mm-hmm.
Yet I saw anthropologists and history professors in the university wearing their Che Guevara shirts and their little keffiyehs on their neck, and they were talking about how Israel is a settler colonialist project.
Right.
And I was like, that doesn't even make sense. That's indigenous people returning to their ancestral land and achieving self-determination, which is the goal of every indigenous people in the world, like my people.
See, my fascination with them goes all the way back to when I was a kid and the war with the Arab states and Moshe Dayan, who to me was like a hero with the eye patch, the whole bit. He looked like something right out of Central Casting.
Yeah.
Then I started reading all I could on the Holocaust. Then I started reading everything I could on the founding of the state of Israel.
Yeah.
And the people, and I read every Leon Uris book I could get my hands on.
Those are great books.
QB7, everything. I read them all.
Yeah.
And I had a Jewish high school history teacher named Mr. Rosenberg. And this guy had a huge impact on me. I mean, he was one of those guys. Yes, he was Jewish, but he wasn't looking for anti-Semitism around every corner. But he was teaching us the way a university professor teaches. You had to take notes, and most of it was oral with him up front giving lectures.
Nice.
And I found it had a huge impact on me. And then when I got older and I had the TV show, I did some fundraising for Haifa University. Oh, nice. And in the course of that, I bumped into quite a few Israeli people. And I'll tell you something. There was one guy who was retired Mossad agent, And this guy fascinated me. He was a bodyguard for a guy here in Toronto, a rich guy. And the one thing that fascinated me with all of them was they had no use for North American Jews.
Yeah.
They thought they were pussies.
Yeah.
And they really believe that they're almost a separate part of Judaism than the people here.
Yeah,
they like their money. They like the fact that they fundraise for them. They want their money, but they don't want to hear from them.
Well, it's not even so much that. It's more that, like with the whole Reform thing, right?
Yeah.
Like Reform Jews, this is, again, it's going to be a little controversial because I'm an Indian talking about Jewish stuff, but Reform Jews basically took Judaism and changed it to make it easier and to make it something that North American Jews could do, right? Because they don't live in little villages. They live all over the place. Right. But the average Israeli is kind of like the average Indian. We're not a big fan of when people come to us and do that new agey, pan-Indian bullshit where let's sit in a circle and sing kumbaya. It's like, no, that's not how we roll.
What about sweat lodges? What is it, just a cheap gym?
No, you know what? Sweats, when done properly, are a spiritual thing. Sweats, when done in a tarp, with men and women together, is not a thing.
If it's $150, it's a rip.
Well, if they're charging you at all.
Okay,
that's like
good.
no legitimate elder will ever ask you for money.
If you're in the sweat lodge and the shaman's makeup starts to run down his face and he starts to get whiter and whiter and whiter, you've been scammed.
Yeah, or if he has that single tear, right?
Yeah, like Chief Iron Eyes Cody, who was Italian?
I think he's Italian, yeah. Gotta love the pretendians.
Man, when I found that out, I started littering on the highway like crazy. I was so mad. So you wind up being a big supporter of Israel.
Yeah.
You're a Métis Cree.
Yeah.
So when's somebody finally wind up calling you a Zionist or anything?
Oh yeah, I got into a little scrap in university. They built one of those stupid apartheid walls at the Butterdome at the University of Alberta.
Yeah.
And I was walking to class and I was going to be late. So I walked over and I said, "Hey guys, I got to get you to move your little wall because it's in my way."
Right.
And this little Arab kid, I like at the time, I just thought he was a dark white guy. He gets in my face and my chest really, and he's like, "Hey, I'm not moving." And I was like, "Well, here's the deal. Either you move the wall and it stays in one piece, or I move the wall and I'm tearing that shit down."
Right.
And he didn't move it, so I tore it down. And I got in a little bit of trouble over it, but I wasn't late for class. That's the upshot.
Yeah. Now, so I know how you feel about Israel. How do Israelis feel about you?
It's actually kind of funny.
Must be kind of fascinating to them, given your heritage.
I have quite a few followers and stuff on social media from Israel, and I have a lot of friends. I go to Israel. I've been there about 6 times now.
I've never been. I always want to go.
Dude, you have to go. It's wonderful.
I got to go.
The food, amazing.
Really?
Yeah, best food in the world. No joke.
Do they have falafels?
And they have shawarma, but no, seriously, like the food.
Do they have chopped liver? They have They have good bagels.
Okay, so that's the thing.
I bet you the bagels are garbage.
Yeah, they don't have that stuff there. They'll look at you like that's not Jewish food.
Yeah, see, I'm more New York Jewish experience than Israel Jewish experience.
Yeah, no, it's great stuff. But you asked me how I got involved in the Indigenous stuff. So my dad, he was always pretty hardcore about that, right? Like he was a.
Well, your dad went to Parliament in '79, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like he was pretty active, and but he'd always he'd become a little bit cynical.
Right.
And he was kind of like, "I don't want you to get involved in politics because he knows me, right?" He just said, you don't have enough bullshit tolerance, you'll start punching people.
Right.
So basically what happened was
which is the same reason I couldn't do it, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to say
the other thing is
simpatico.
The other thing is 2 days after you're elected, you change.
Yeah.
You become I've seen enough of it to know they become completely different people than they were.
Yeah.
And I don't get people who take political science in university and then actually become politicians. Yeah. That wasn't the whole gig behind political science, Yeah,
it doesn't make sense.
It was get out there, get a job, make an impact in private industry, and then give back to society. Yeah. Now I've been a politician since I was 17 and I was in the Young Liberals.
Yeah, I can't with those people. So I got involved with a movement called Idle No More.
Yep.
I used to write press releases. I helped with like high-level strategy, stuff like that.
Right.
I was really active in Calgary. I organized a bunch of events. I was pretty active in that stuff. But I started realizing that, all these people, like you just said, they get involved in activism and they'd want to have events at like 2:00 on a Thursday.
Right.
And I said, well, who the hell's going to show up for that? I was like, most of us have jobs. I was like, you can't have an event at 2:00 on a Thursday? And they would say, well, enough people will come. And I was like, well, okay, but you're preaching to the choir.
Right.
You're going to have 4 or 5 lonely Indians standing outside the friggin' legislature building. Nothing's going to change. And what the hell did you accomplish?
And by the way, as soon as you do something at 2:00 in the afternoon, what's the public response? Get a job.
Exactly.
That's what you get from people driving by.
Yep.
Get a job.
Especially if you're dumb enough to block off a street and piss everyone off.
You got to do it at 9 p.m. People go, wow, this guy worked hard all day and he's still got time to protest? That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's what people don't get. The Chick-fil-A thing in Toronto when they opened Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
The first thing out of people's mouths was, get a job.
Yeah, what are you doing?
Yeah, I'm trying to get my lunch and go back to the office.
Oh, exactly. It's crazy.
So then you got into this. You were doing the press releases. You were doing the, I guess you were really doing a lot of strategy.
Yeah, like we ended up, myself and 2 of the women had kind of broken off. We were getting kind of tired of some of the direction it was going.
The asides and all the other stuff going on.
And all the clickiness and the nonsense, right? Like,
and the ulterior stuff that goes on in all those places.
Well, I mean, like one person, like I said in a private group, I said, look, we better trademark the name because I don't know about you guys, but I know how I think.
Right.
And if I really wanted to fuck with us, I would have just said, oh, hey, Idle No More shirts,
Yeah.
you know? And I would have trademarked Idle No More as an opponent.
Right.
And I said, so we better think about that. Well, Jessica Gordon, one of the actual 4 founders, she went and trademarked it so that nobody else could do that to us.
Right.
And you would have thought she shot the Pope. Everybody was freaking out. And I'm like, she did exactly what she's supposed to do. She's protecting us by doing that.
Right.
But no, people just couldn't. They were like, now you guys are getting all corporate.
By the way, it's a bad name.
Oh,
the first thing I would think is I don't shut off my car for anybody. I don't shut off my car at the gas station. I'm not doing it for you. Idle No More.
Fair enough.
Right away, you sound like eco-terrorist when it's called Idle No More.
Yeah, there was a little bit of that, unfortunately, as well.
Right. So that you got out of that, then what'd you do?
Well, I went home. I worked up north for a bit. I worked in basically the far north. So we're talking the arboreal forest, Northwest Territories.
I worked in the Yukon for a while. I know exactly where you're talking about. Yeah.
Armpit of the world. So you know.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty bad. One woman in the whole camp, she had no teeth, and after I'd been there 3 months, she looked like Christy Brinkley.
Yeah, there's a term for that, right? It's called Camp 9. So she's a 9 in camp, but she's probably a 3 everywhere else, right?
Okay, yeah.
We're not allowed to rate women anymore. My bad.
I let me just at this point say that I don't think we ever were, Ryan. And now I'm going to put my hand over my water glass. Now I don't trust you. But so you went to the far north to the arboreal forest, which I have seen, by the way. It's amazing.
It's beautiful up there.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of work up there running machinery, bulldozers, track hose, once in a while the odd grader. So
right.
Yeah. It was fun.
Okay, so let's recap. You're Métis and Cree.
Yep.
You look like a redneck. You've already stood up for Israel. You did Idle No More, and this is an amazing story. And then you went up north. You worked in the arboreal forest with heavy machinery.
Yep.
Now we're going to get to something that is very important to me, and I'm sure it's important to you, the subject of water.
Okay, so I noticed when I was doing a lot of the activism stuff that, I would go to powwows and stuff all over Canada, and you really start to see, like when you go to the reserves and you're actually spending time with the people, you see a more in-depth picture.
Right.
Right. So, I'm not talking about reserves like it was Soyuz in BC, where they got a guy like Clarence Louie making money with wine.
Right.
I'm talking about places like North Tall Cree in Alberta, Attawapiskat in Northern Ontario.
Well, Attawapiskat's the one on everybody's lips.
Yeah, that's the one. So a couple months ago, I started talking to a buddy of mine, and I said, it's garbage. This, what's his name? Charlie Angus. Every year he comes on and does the big song and dance and the big sob story about we have to help the Indians. But he's been the MP for how long, right? At some point you got to point the finger at him and say, Charlie, get off your ass.
Right.
But they're not gonna. So
and Trudeau hasn't done anything in 3 years, and he made it
made that a promise.
Main component of his campaign, Attawapiskat in particular.
Yeah. So
and that river, so people know, full of mercury. What else?
Yeah, the river is not drinkable. It's like it might as well be a tailing pond, right?
Right.
So we were looking at some different methods that they use in other countries, and a friend of mine, he actually said, well, I was watching this video and they were talking about water from the air.
Yeah.
But the only thing is, like, it has to be a fairly humid environment and blah, blah, blah.
Which Ottawa-Upscott would be in the summer.
Exactly. Yeah. So I took a look at the video, and it's actually a company out of Israel called WaterGen.
Jesus, back to the Israel.
I know, hey, it's random, but
everything in your life goes back to Israel.
It's kind of weird, isn't it?
Oh, man, you are the most wannabe Jewish guy I've ever met in my life.
Dude, you want to hear something really funny? So, like, my life is kind of like Forrest Gump. All this random shit happens to me. Yeah. I'm just kind of a bystander.
And it all ends beautifully at the end, like a Seinfeld episode?
I hope so, you know, with the feather, you know. Mm-hmm. But, so I looked into this company. I started talking to another friend of mine that I had met through doing other advocacy, and he said, you know what we could do? He said, we could do a project where what we do is we show proof of concept. We show that this works, and we do it for one reserve. We get them clean water.
Right.
And if we can do that.
And again, this is water from air.
Yeah.
And obviously they've been doing it in Israel for a long time.
Yeah, and they've exported the machines to Africa, South America. Like, these have worked in several locations, but it's never worked in Canada. And part of the problem is going to be winter.
This is my question, because that's what I was going to ask you about. It would be seasonal, one.
Yeah.
And two, I would hope to God, regardless of price, the government researched this and had another reason for turning it down.
Well, here's the thing. Yeah. The government hasn't done anything with this yet. This is us. So we're doing it
They haven't looked at it.
They haven't looked at it yet, because here's what we're going to do. This is my plan. I don't know if it'll work, but we're going to give it a shot. We're going to get a machine. We've already engaged an engineer to try and figure out a way.
How big is this machine?
6 foot by 6 foot by 6 foot cube.
That's it?
Yeah.
And how many people are in Ottawa-Upscott?
There's 1,500 people, I believe.
And that one machine can make enough water for these people?
Yeah.
Potable water.
Potable water, yep. And it's completely pure. So, but here's the thing. So our challenge is going to be to make it work in a cold environment.
Right.
Right. So we've already engaged an engineer. We've been running some tests. We're pretty sure we can make it work. Like, we've got some pretty smart people. I mean, Israel's full of freaking Nobel Prize winners. I mean, one of those guys.
May I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Put it in a sweat lodge.
Thank you. We're actually, you're going to laugh, but I was thinking using shipping containers because they're easy.
Not bad. Insulate it, get it going.
Exactly. So we figure if we can get proof of concept in Attawapiskat, which is a miserable place in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
It's a fly-in only in the summer. It's ice roads in the winter.
Right.
It's got a difficult chief, to say the least.
Yeah.
You know, if we can make it work there and we can show proof of concept to the government, they will have absolutely no choice but to do this and roll this out in other reserves.
Okay, so how much is this machine?
Well, we're fundraising for it right now. The machine itself, all of the equipment, everything together, we think is going to be about, it's probably about $185,000 for all the stuff.
Okay, how much maintenance is involved with it?
Well, that's going to be the issue, right? So we're trying to figure out a way to make it, it's kind of funny. They say that it's foolproof, but my dad's an old native guy. My dad said, well, you know, they say it's idiot proof, but they've never met Indians.
Right.
So we got to be careful.
Somebody's got to be trained on how to use it too.
Yeah, we're going to need somebody to help look after it, and you know, because there's also going to be a humidifier and a heater and a fan. Like there's
how much
some
water
moving
can
parts.
how much water can this thing produce a day?
Well, the machine that we're looking at in particular, 900 cubic meters
a day.
So it makes
a lot of water.
Makes a lot of water. So we're looking forward to it.
Okay, but can you hook it up to the plumbing in the reserve?
Well, now here's the thing, because we're hoping. And we're looking into all this stuff right now in regards to infrastructure that we can use. And
because I don't want people walking with pails to get water.
Exactly. So we're hoping basically to build like a generator set, put everything all together, and they basically all they'll have to do is walk up, turn on the tap, and fill their 5-gallon whatever, you know, those big blue water bottles. Yeah. Because at least then they don't have to drive for 2 hours to town, which is what they're doing.
Yeah, but are they bathing in that river water? Are they using it in their bathtubs? Are they using it in their showers?
Yeah, they use it for washing and stuff, and that's not even very healthy. Like
no.
What we'd really like to do as well, the second part of the project, is there's another Israeli company that does filtration, and that would be like the second part of the project. Once we get them drinkable water.
How much is Israel paying you for this stuff?
Nothing.
Okay.
You know, that's the funny part. So I've actually spent my own money doing this stuff.
All right.
I wish, you know, everybody's always like, hey, you know, do you get money from like the elders?
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, if they're sending me money, it's going to the wrong fucking address.
I mean, man, I got to tell you, in Alabama, you're the kind of guy a rabbi runs away from. They want to look at you, and the guy would go the other way. It's just,
oh yeah, it's pretty funny.
You know, I mean, in Alabama, I'd be expecting to see a Confederate flag on your shirt. You just look like that kind of guy.
Well, I'm wearing a Johnny Cash shirt.
So. Yeah, okay, that's good. He was secretive about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's, it's one of those things. You try your best to make things better than you found them, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we were talking outside, and I mean, you come from an Irish background, and Irish, like your people came over here from Ireland. They were treated very nice.
No.
And that's, so I mean, I don't judge you
And
by that.
I have to say this about my family. They didn't treat people very nicely either. So, you know what I mean? You get what you give.
Yeah. But I mean, at the end of the day, we're all Canadians, so we're trying to make the world a better place.
Yeah, yeah. And by the way, are you Indigenous first, Canadian second, Canadian first, Indigenous second? What are you?
Oh man, you're not lobbing me any softballs here, bud.
No.
Look, I'm gonna be honest because it's the only way to be. Family, clan, tribe, nation. That's the order of my life.
Get out.
Okay.
No, I mean it. Get out.
No, it's look.
I get it.
Are we in
I'll
Russia?
tell you though. Here's how bad my family is. I put Canada in front of my family.
Fair enough. I always tell people, look, you remember in those old days we'd watch movies and they would show like Russian kids turning in their parents and everybody like, oh my God, that's terrible.
Right.
Well, that's nationalism. When you put nationalism ahead of family, that's what happens.
Yeah, that's true. You're making a good point, actually.
So.
You're making a good point. Now people are going to turn in their kids for making a homophobic remark. Or,
it's
that's the way it's going to go now. But that's pretty amazing. So, who have you talked to in the government about putting this thing up there? And by the way, $185,000 to the Canadian government.
Oh, it's a drop in the bucket.
It's not,
but
literally, it's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, you got to remember, it's one of those things where if you know people, you get stuff moving faster. So, I mean, one of the people working with me knows Gila Marto. She's in Parliament. So, I mean, Gila has already said, when you guys have something concrete, I can take it. Because look, there's like 5 million people with great ideas, but great ideas don't always translate to reality.
Tell you what you got to do, Ryan. You said it costs $185,000, right?
Yeah.
When you pitch it to the government, you got to say it's 18.5 mil. And, you got to show them how small it is and how simple it is, but you got to put that 18.5 mil price tag on there. They're not giving it to you.
Yeah, well,
they'll give you 18.5. They're not going to give you 185.
Oh, of course. Well, we're also like we are going to have to raise money in order to run the tests, like
right,
because the machine itself is a good machine.
Yeah.
We have to make it work in Canada, which is sometimes minus 20.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know this, but like in minus 20, there's no moisture in the air. So then we have to find a way to moisturize the air, and then you get the humidifier and the heater, and so we got to run some tests.
You got a ways to go.
We got a little ways to go, but I really think this is a project that could be paradigm changing.
It sounds to me like an election year thing. If you got it to his ear, this would be music to his ears. Oh my God, I found this machine in Israel, and we're going to try this, and we're going to see if it works. And he'll fly his ass up there the first day. And when he opens his mouth, that'll create all the humidity you want for the machine.
Dude, that's why I was always a Mike Bullard fan. You might have been one of the best guys for
I keep everybody guessing. You know what? People think I'm for Trudeau one day. They think I'm for Scheer the next day. They think I might be swaying toward Bernier. Never the NDP or the Green Party, never.
No, I hate those
but
guys.
I'm keeping them all guessing because honestly, I haven't made my decision yet. And this is the first time in my whole life I haven't made my decision yet at this point leading up to an election.
Wow.
Now, I had no problem getting rid of Wynne and voting Conservative. And I tell everybody that, and they freak out on me.
Yeah.
She had to go.
Yep.
And I didn't vote for Doug Ford. I voted against Kathleen Wynne. And by the way, that's my privilege.
Yeah.
That's my privilege. My brother lives in the States. He lives in California. In America, you go into a house for a party, and the first question out of their mouths is, are you a Republican or a Democrat? I've never walked into someone's house where they said, are you a liberal or a conservative or an NDP in this country, And we actually don't get into those discussions. But now, thanks to Twitter and Facebook, you could be torn to shreds for any belief you have. And, you have a right to that belief.
Yep.
You have a God-given right to that belief, but not on Twitter, not on Facebook.
Well, it's
so I keep them guessing every day by slagging one of them one day and one the next.
What I've noticed is that it's not even whether or not you're anti-Trump. It's whether or not you're anti-Trump enough.
Right.
Like for me, I'm not a pro-Trump guy. I never was.
No.
Right. But at the same time, wasn't a big fan of Obama. Wasn't a huge fan of the Democrats. Wasn't a huge fan of the Republicans. But I started seeing, especially in American politics, I am one of those people that thinks to drain the swamp, but that's the kind of thing that needs to happen. It needs to happen in Canada.
I tell people all the time, who destroyed Detroit?
Yeah.
Democrats.
Exactly.
Democratic mayors, Democratic senators, Democratic governors.
Yeah, Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
So, I mean, but now some of my friends will literally say to me, like I posted the other day, I was like, I got to admit, sometimes Trump, his Twitter is friggin' hilarious. I said, sometimes you got to somebody should take his password away. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But other times I read it and I just laugh because he's like, he's really poking these, like America has an internet troll for the president.
My recommendation to keep yourself from going completely insane over Trump and the stuff he does.
Yeah.
Don't ever read a presidential biography about a great president.
Yeah.
I just finished one on Eisenhower.
Oh,
and then I went to Twitter, and it actually made me incensed when I saw him after seeing how presidential this man was. You know, from the time he was a soldier to the time he died, how this man did nothing but give and give and give to his country and left us with a legacy. You know, military-industrial complex. The guy was also a soothsayer.
Yep.
And then I go to this guy, and I'm going, man, I can't take this.
You know, there's a movie, Mike Judge, the Beavis and Butthead guy.
Yeah.
He made a movie called Idiocracy.
Yeah, I saw it. I loved it.
I got to tell you, like he nailed it.
That was Dick Cheney. He was going after Dick Cheney in that one.
Yeah, but I mean, like the president there, Hector Camacho, blah blah blah, and it's like everything he talked is just like Trump. Like, but here's the thing, everybody bags on Trump. But the economy is doing pretty good under Trump. Trump is like he knows how to picket people. He knows how to get people to do what he wants. The guy is a master manipulator. Like, you got to give him props for that.
And
but if you do that, you're a terrible human being.
Well, I prefer the word sociopath. Okay, you can use the word terrible human being.
Yeah.
We got a guy up here who I would say that he does the same thing Trump does in a much more subtle manner.
And he wears really nice socks.
See, here's the hypocrisy of social justice warriors and some members of the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
If you look like Justin Trudeau and you groped a chick's ass 15 years ago, because through some weird aberration, sexual aberration, you think he's a great prime minister, he gets a pass.
Yep.
Now, I know guys who've lost their lives for a lot less than groping a woman in a public place.
Yeah.
But when I saw this guy get a pass, I just went, you know what? And his explanation, which was sometimes women view things differently than men do, was, 1950. That was 1950s. That was a 1950s explanation for something he did 15 years ago.
Look, we live in an age where we're not even really allowed to talk about this stuff anymore. I made a comment to a friend of mine the other day. She was bitching about a mutual friend of ours that was hitting on her.
Yeah.
And I said, here's my problem with everything you're telling me. If he was really good looking, wouldn't bother you at all.
Right.
They were talking about. I've seen it.
They were talking about Lena Dunham diving in for a kiss on Brad Pitt in the red carpet 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then some idiot goes, whoa, some woman goes, well, I'll tell you one thing. If Brad Pitt did it to her, it would not be a different story.
Yeah.
If Brad Pitt did it to anybody, they would swoon.
Oh, exactly.
Brad Pitt, every chick I ever went out with, Brad Pitt was their hall pass.
Yeah, exactly.
Just like Angelina Jolie was mine.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Well,
that's the whole thing, right? And we don't acknowledge that kind of stuff anymore. We don't talk about.
Does that social justice stuff and all that does that go on in?
We make fun of
with Indigenous people
sometimes. Here's the sad part with the really activisty people.
Yeah,
they're as SJW as anybody else. They're the ones that'll try and cancel you if you say something mean about trans or anything.
Right.
But the average Native person, they think those people are retarded. Yeah. Oh, and we will actually use that word, retarded. We'll say, that's stupid. And,
if you look up retarded in the dictionary, it has nothing to do with someone's mental capacity or incapacity.
And here's the thing.
It's just slowing down.
Yeah. I would never say to a mentally handicapped person,
you're retarded.
Right.
But by the way, it's also a big word.
What I would say, what I would say,
you better cut that out. I don't want to be. I don't want to be in trouble. I don't want to be in trouble.
Yeah, but I mean, to a stupid person, I would have no problem saying it.
Right. Yeah. But, and by the way, that word was prevalent right up till about 15 years ago, and now all of a sudden it's. Yeah. You still hear it on Stern. Stern still does it.
Yeah, he gets away with it.
And God bless Dave Chappelle, because his Sticks and Stones special on Netflix has taken that car and pushed it right over the cliff and took them all with it.
Yep.
Rotten Tomatoes, first time ever.
Oh, wow.
0% from critics,
Yeah.
99.9% from audience.
That was amazing.
And that was a fuck you to Vice and every one of these people. Yeah. And these people who reviewed it are liars or they didn't watch it.
100%.
Because you just didn't get it, what he was doing.
Look, you and I were talking about this, and I think you said something very apt, is that somebody like Dave Chappelle, he's too big to fail.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's not.
Well, that's what I said. Somebody called him courageous. I said, look, somebody said to me, how come, you're the guy who should be doing that here. And I said, oh, yeah, easy. It's easy to call Dave Chappelle and any other American comic who's big courageous because they've all got $100 million in the bank.
Yep. Here,
do what Dave Chappelle did once. You'll not only get paid $800 for your comedy special, you'll never work again. So there's the difference between here and there.
Yeah.
And you did a special like Dave Chappelle did. If you did that here, you don't think that you'd be charged under a couple of hate laws?
Oh, absolutely.
You would be.
This country's ridiculous with that. But it's funny because like what Dave did was he showed people the ridiculousness of it.
Right.
Right. Like we can sit and we can talk about it, but it doesn't matter how ridiculous the stuff is.
How is it not funny to say, those people who stole 20% of the alphabet while we weren't looking?
Yeah.
That's not funny?
Yeah, I thought it was hilarious.
They said it wasn't funny.
Yeah. Well, did you see that one that they had the trans person on YouTube, ContraPoints or whatever? They were interviewing on the Young Turks, and the person said, I never actually watched it. They had him on the show to review the comedy special that he hadn't watched.
Right.
Like, what the hell is wrong with you people? And then they wonder why 99% of the audience said, yeah, you, and 100 or 0% of the critics. Like, it's ridiculous.
What he's done is he's taken alpha males off the endangered species list.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I'll tell you something. We were all getting tagged with toxic.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
The Gillette commercial.
Oh, goodness.
I can't tell you how ecstatic I was 2 months ago when I read that Gillette lost $8 billion.
Yeah, good on them.
And I heard this asshole CEO say, and if I had it to do all over again, I'd do it all over again.
Yep.
That to me was absolutely mind-boggling because I didn't think my generation boycotted anything that offended them, but men quietly stopped buying the product and didn't say a word to anybody.
I got a question for you. Were you a Star Wars kid when you were growing up? Like, did you watch our young?
No, you know what I was? I was a Bonanza kid.
Okay.
I was I've been a movie buff my whole life. I was a Dirty Harry Deliverance kid.
Nice.
Yeah. I saw them, by the way, you want to talk about a sweet night? Dirty Harry and Deliverance, $3, Sheridan Mall movie theater, same night, double feature.
Oh, that'd be pretty sweet.
You want to talk sweet. Godfather 1 and 2, double feature, Sheridan Mall, $3.50.
Oh, man.
I was there for 6 hours.
That's a long day, but a good day.
Oh, it was a great day, yeah. For me, I guess the TV for me, I mean, when it came to sitcoms, I think one of the most underrated ones of all time was Barney Miller. Probably the second best ensemble cast in TV history, third best behind Seinfeld and Mary Tyler Moore. But for me, when it came to dramas and stuff, I mean, you got to understand, a lot of it was police stuff, a lot of it was lawyer stuff. Police Story, Joseph Wambaugh's Police Story was amazing to me, watching stuff like that.
Okay.
But yeah, you were probably a Star Wars kid. Well, so if you were going to look at me that way, I'd have to say I was a Star Trek kid.
Okay. Because I don't know if you've been following what happened with the Star Wars movies, but they turned into this SJW nonsense, right? Like,
yeah.
So basically, everybody like
me. But
me,
Disney did that. It wasn't Lucas, right?
Yeah, exactly. He sold it, and they got this guy to write the movies. And, like a guy like me that grew up with Star Wars toys and I grew up watching the movies, they literally took something that was part of our childhood and just pissed all over it and then said, we're subverting expectations.
Right. It's like, worse than Turner Classic Movies taking a black and white movie and colorizing it.
Yeah, it's way worse because what they did was they made.
By the way, the only I can't explain this, but when Turner Classic Movies colored those classic films, the only one in my house who got excited was the dog. So much for them being colorblind.
Yeah, exactly.
My dog was suddenly riveted by all these old color movies. I couldn't figure it out.
That's funny.
But yeah, so he's done this. What he's done is taken your childhood and
ruined it.
Yeah,
like, we won't. I won't.
It's like taking Catcher in the Rye and removing the suicide attempt.
Yeah, it doesn't make
sense. And
that's
what they're going to do. They'll re-release Catcher in the Rye. They'll reprint it and take out the suicide attempt.
Oh yeah, they'll re-release To Kill a Mockingbird and they won't say the N-word once.
Right.
Right. because, people are so fragile. It's insanity.
Yeah, the people who are fragile are offended for other people.
Yeah.
They're not offended for themselves. They're offended for people who aren't offended. So I'm like I tell you, some of the toughest friends I have are gay.
Oh, absolutely.
And they had to be here. They wouldn't be here.
Yeah, somebody would have done them in.
Rubbed tough. Now, I'm not even going to give a count because that makes it sound like you're full of shit. But I got gay friends, and every single one of them hates lesbians, and I have a couple of lesbian friends, and they hate gay men.
Really?
They backstab the shit out of each other.
Okay.
And the one thing they're all united in is, boy, those transgenders better not start getting some of the benefits that I fought so hard for. And that's the truth. I'm telling you, that's the truth.
I could see it. I mean, I think part of the problem is that with a lot of the trans people, some of the stuff that they're espousing goes directly against the whole idea of, your choice for sexual partners. Like if you tell me, you're a transphobe because you don't want to have sex with somebody else that has a penis, and I'm like, the only penis I want in the room when I'm having sex is mine.
Yeah.
But now I'm a bad person.
Well, you've made what you've done is make a bad choice.
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, I will have sex with a man before I die. I will. I want to see what the fuss is about. I'm serious. You know why? Because I've said to my gay friends, wait a minute. Women are sewage plants down there. Oh, you don't want to go anywhere near it, but you've never been anywhere near it. So how do you know? So they're always hitting me all the time with, well, how do you know what it's like for two men to be together? So now I don't like having my bluff called. So now I got no choice. I got to do it so that I can come back and go, hey, let me tell you something, boys. It's way better with a woman. I got no choice. That's what I got to do.
Hey, to each their own.
Yeah. Now, my hope is that it's a pre-op transgender person with a very, very tiny penis and completely hairless and beautiful high cheekbones.
Fair enough.
Because if I'm going to go through this, I want this person to look as much like a woman as is humanly possible.
But then according to some of those people, you're not actually gay.
Right.
Because that's a woman. They feel like a woman.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so you know what? This was even better for me. This one works out even sweeter for me. Yeah, this is good.
This is the kind of craziness we live in now, though. Yeah. I talk about identity, right? That's kind of what I do when I talk in universities and stuff. And so you and I were talking about when I was in Berkeley. And, you try to tell stories. You try to
you got to tell that here because that's an amazing story. that would almost be a great one to end it on. But I just want to. That's what we'll end it on. But okay. I want to ask you one more thing.
Sure.
One of the issues I have with a lot of the problems that are going on the reservations and a lot of the money that's flowing is the fact that I have had personal experience with a corrupt chief. And my personal experience with a corrupt chief was that wanted me to do the show, my TV show, from a casino for a week.
Okay.
Now, we started talking, and then all of a sudden it went right to what's in it for me. Not what's in it for the band, not what's in it for my people, what's in it for me.
Yep.
And then I talked to other people who were friends of mine who'd done some stuff, and they started telling me stories. Now, how prevalent is this?
Well, there's a chief of a nation. You know what? I can say the nation name. I won't say his name. You can Google it. The Roseau First Nation.
Right.
This chief has been removed for corruption, for theft 7 times.
Right.
But what happens is he gets removed, then they call for another election, and his family all votes for him again.
Right.
His family's the biggest family on the res.
Yeah.
He gets back in.
Yeah.
We go to the government. We say, why are you letting this guy run again? Like, he's corrupt. We kicked him out, and they're calling another election.
If the government tried to stop him from running, I mean, you know what would happen.
Well, then there'd be blockades.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, if the government really was being firm about, saying, hey, we're going to help you with the self-governance, but this is an issue across Canada. And look, I'm not going to bag on all the chiefs. There are some very good chiefs out there, chiefs that are really working hard for their people.
Yeah.
But my dad said it best when he was the chairman for the Paddle Prairie settlement, which is kind of like our chief. If he wants to make a change, he needs to have 2 or 3 people of a like mind on council with him, or nothing he says is going to get done. The problem is that everybody wants something for them.
Right.
So that's why you go to these reserves, and you ever notice when you're in the band office, everybody has the same last name because the chief gets in and he hires his cousin and then he hires his nephews.
Oh, it's nepotism right out in the open.
Yeah. So it is a difficult. It's one of the challenges, right, of trying to make changes on reserves. And what you went through is absolutely the norm. Like that is, I will say that. I know I'm going to take shit for it, but I've heard stuff like that all over the place. What's in it for me? Like the pipeline guys, I guarantee you, the guys on the route of that pipeline, they got paid.
You're from out west. You ever heard of the Saugeen?
Yep.
Okay, they own Sauble Beach.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, it's heaven.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
The way they have it set up.
Yeah.
They got 2,500 cottagers. Mm-hmm. Every one of them pays $8,000 a year for the privilege of having a building they own on land they don't.
Yeah, exactly.
They run the garbage. They run everything. They own the businesses. And they're all living well. Their kids are doing well. Their kids are all off at university. It's a very small band.
Yeah.
But to me, that place is an example of what can be done.
100%.
Given the opportunity and the right circumstances and the right geography.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, part of the problem is that a lot of these reserves are in remote locations, middle of nowhere, no access to anything.
It's the biggest issue, right?
Yeah, that is the main one for most of them.
Yeah.
And there are reserves.
I was in none of it, and I'll tell you, I was there for 3 days.
Yeah. What were you doing in none of it?
When they became part of the, when they became part of Confederation, they became part of the country. Yeah. I went up there for it. I was invited up, and I was walking around. It's dark. It's dark. It's sad.
Yeah.
And I had a sense of none of it induced melancholy the whole time I was there, and my mood didn't lighten until I got down to Vancouver.
Yeah, man. I got to tell you, sometimes when I was working up north, you see some of those places, and you're like, this isn't even third world.
Yeah, I mean, you don't stand a snowball's chance in hell when you're there.
Those kids, you see those kids, and you.
I saw two kids sniffing glue.
Yeah, see.
I haven't seen a kid sniff glue since like '68 when my dad chased two guys from a field next to our house. And the next time I saw it was up there. It was tragic to me.
It's harsh.
Okay, so you were lecturing at Berkeley. This is a great story. I want you to tell this story exactly the way you told me outside, because that's how I want to end the show. This is Ryan's in big demand, and I think everybody knows Berkeley has got to be the left-wing capital of all universities, right?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So I was there speaking about Indigenous rights, and so I was talking. I gave a little bit of my.
Well, it was interesting to me that an American university would ask you to come there to talk about it.
Well, actually, it's funny because I've spoken at quite a few. Like I've spoken at Penn, like a few Ivy League schools. So
yeah,
I mean they're interested in Indigenous issues, I guess. So and a lot of times when I talk about the Israel stuff, then it turns into a shit show because people protest. So
right.
It's pretty funny actually.
Yeah.
But so I'm talking, and I give the kids kind of a little bit of an overview of where I'm from. Yeah. Because I'm from Paddle Prairie, which is a very remote place.
And again, on the Jewish thing, you look like a cross between Herman Gearing and a redneck. So
yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So you'd think they'd give you a pass.
Yeah. So I'm talking to them, and I said, look, like growing up, we didn't have power running water.
Right.
It was a difficult existence. We hunted in the summer. We had a garden. We canned food. We didn't have a refrigerator, obviously with no electricity. Right. Little things that people don't think about. And there's this girl, and she's sitting in the back, and she's has this really sad look on her face, and she literally looks like she's about to start crying.
Right.
And she puts her hand up. Now, normally I try to save the questions to the end. And
for a Q&A?
Yeah. And I leave enough time because they usually have some good questions, right? But she's like, she's putting her hand up, and I was like, it's Berkeley, so I kind of know something's up. So I said, go ahead. So she stands up, and she prefaces it with the whole land acknowledgement thing first, right?
Right.
Because that's what they do.
To prove that she was listening to you.
Yeah. And she's like, I'd like to acknowledge that we're on the land of the blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I'm just like trying not to roll my eyes, right?
And then we have no business being here, but oh God, there's such a good Starbucks.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
So I'm like standing there, and I'm like, okay, wind it up, lady. And then she says, I just want you to understand that I know how you feel. And I'm like, oh, that's nice. She's acknowledging that I grew up in the middle of bumfuck nowhere with no running water. Yeah. And then she says, I can't have a latte because they won't let me bring almond milk. I have to have soy milk or real milk, and I'm lactose intolerant.
Yeah, so she equated that.
Yeah. So I looked at her, and I didn't know what to say. So I was like, yeah. I said, that's exactly what it's like, not having running water and using an outhouse when it's 40 below. It's like not having soy milk for your latte.
Yeah.
And she genuine tears. We're not talking like she was really feeling this. So she sits down, and I just looked at these kids, and I realized, I was like, these kids have no idea what life's in store for them.
No.
Like nothing.
No. I got asked to speak at a university once, and the organizer was a really nice girl. naive, young, you know.
Yeah.
So after it was done, I mailed her a thank you note with a peanut in it. It's kind of my, you know, up yours.
That's awesome.
What a pleasure, buddy. And listen, if there's anything I can do to help you with this $185,000 you need, aside from giving you any money myself, I'd be happy to do it, because what you're doing is, well, basically God's work. Actually, you're doing the government's work, but
yeah,
you know,
I appreciate that. I'll send you the website. We're going to have everything up and running here. For
you know what? We'll link it. We'll link it to ours.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Thank
you.
We'll
do that. We'll link it to ours, and then it'll go out.
I appreciate that.
By the way, my producer Ben is looking at me like, "No, how the hell did he know what link it to ours means?" Must have freaked there, huh?
Ben's pretty smart. He's a computer guy.
Yeah. Thanks to him, I know how to text more than one person at a time. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you, Mike. It's a pleasure.
All right, man. That's it.
The king of spontaneity, legendary comedian Mike Bullard, is back. Stay up to date with the latest from Mike and the podcast by following us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Minds.com and Gab, or navigate to www.u2mikebullard.com. While you're online, please show your support for the show by leaving a review on your favourite media player. You can check out all of our podcasts by following Possibly Correct on Minds.com.